Okay, our next presentation is Digital Archaeology in the Private Sector, Leveraging Technology and Cultural Resource Management by Ted Roberts and, well, see if I get this right, Sean Fehrenbach, so from PaleoWay Archaeology.
Oh boy, we're already at the end. So thank you. Yes, the title of our talk today is Digital Archaeology in the Private Sector. I believe we're the only folks at the conference talking about doing digital archaeology in the private sector in particular. And so that's kind of what I'll try and focus on here are the digital workflows that work for us and kind of why we're doing what we're doing and how we've made it make sense in the business context. So we work for PaleoWay Archaeology. We're a digital, I'm sorry. Tech issues, sorry. We work for PaleoWay Archaeology. We're a private consulting firm doing archaeology. And really in that context, necessity is the mother of invention. So we have to think about why we're doing things within the constraints of a market economy in effort to gain a competitive advantage both through efficiency but also through providing a better product to our clients. So the short answer for how we've been able to do what we've been able to do is that it makes sense to us because of efficiency and quality of deliverables. So here's a quick roadmap for the talk. I'll first talk about, we've branded our system as the PaleoWay. And I'll talk about what it is and how we developed it. And I'll go on from there to talk about directions for the future, where we're going from here, and then talk about the purpose and benefits of this system. So we've developed a system really through a process of problem solving through experience. We've been deploying digital workflows on hundreds of projects for the past 4.5 years. So what is the PaleoWay? It's not monolithic. It's actually just a commitment to realizing the benefits of digital workflows. We use lots of different apps. We have lots of different approaches to doing things. And actually, we consider one of the biggest advantages of the approach is that we're able to be nimble with it and customize our digital workflows at the project level. So we deployed on concurrent projects with dozens of users. The logistics of doing this in the private world are quite a bit different from doing it in academic contexts where you're generally working on 1 or 2 projects at a time. We have dozens of users, and we also work across not just a broad geographical space, we're a nationwide firm, but we work within lots of different regulatory contexts and have to apply our system to all of those types of needs for our clients. So one part of the PaleoWay is that I'll focus on here for a few minutes are our database systems. And this is kind of at the core of a rethinking of the traditional process in consultant archaeology, cultural resources management. And so this schematic just kind of, it's a little busy, I apologize for that, but it shows the difference in what we're doing in kind of a simple way. So on the bottom you can see the process used to be collecting data in the field on paper, and then everything would come back after folks come out of the field, and there would be lots of digitizing all of that analog data into digital data. And then we would produce all of our deliverables, edit all of those things, send them off to the client, and we would end up on the bottom there, that circle is a cycle of rework that we would do where we'd get comments back and have to change things in many different places in our report, in forms that we provided to clients. And with the new system, up top you can see we immediately cut digitization out of the process entirely since data are born digital. And we send all of our data in one way or another into a central database where everybody can edit the data all at the same time, and we're able to produce deliverables in various ways directly out of our database systems for our clients. Then when we get comments back, the data can be edited in a single place in the database, and various types of deliverables can be produced from the same data set, and we have much less rework. One thing that was really important to us as we set up the system was keeping it simple. So because the logistics of how broadly we work and the different contexts that we work in are so difficult, we needed to make sure that we had a system that just about anybody could use. We didn't want it to just be a system for the geeks like me on the back end. We wanted everybody out in the field to be comfortable with it. Everybody these days is pretty comfortable with iPads, iPhones, touchscreen interfaces, and so making things familiar to folks was in terms of navigation and also what they were used to in terms of a traditional archaeological workflow was at the forefront in our minds as we developed it. So you can see here's some navigation structures where folks can click through very easily to the common types of forms that we're all used to in archaeological context. One of the biggest advantages of going digital, obviously, is how much automation there can be in the systems. So there's much less data recording if you can do a lot more on the front end and send users out with systems that will populate themselves. We never really write down dates anymore because the computer knows what date it is. It knows who you are. This is great because I'm sure you all remember how many times do you fill out the date 17,000 times when you're out on an excavation on 17 different forms and 43 different paper bags. And really what this leads to is better quality data. When you're recording in a paper system, there can be things left blank. There can be fields filled in with the wrong types of data. We can control what type of data go into the system, and we've found that there's a much easier quality control process for us because we can control what types of data go where and whether or not data need to be entered in certain critical fields. Another big benefit of the system is with geotagging spatial data. So this is adapted project by project. Generally, we have contract requirements that require us to record some of our spatial data with more accurate GPSs than what are available in mobile devices, but it can still be really useful to leverage the GPS in the devices for lots of different things, including navigation, but also geotagging photos. Oftentimes, it's sufficient for recording isolated finds in the field, things like that. It's very quick, and again, that's automatic. Another benefit of going digital is the amount of data we're able to take into the field. This is an example from a project that we did in California where we recorded, I believe it was 571 archaeological sites on Fort Irwin. And so what we did is ahead of time we populated, these were all reevaluations of known sites. So you can imagine what the literature search must have looked like for that project, just piles and piles of paper. But being able to take all of those PDFs and load them onto a small device and send that out into the field with our folks and pre-populate as well some of the data that we knew would have to go into the forms, we could do a lot more of the work on the front end and also make the logistics much easier for our team. For excavation projects, we're also using QR codes to track things. This is something that's been tried a lot of ways in archaeology for many years using barcodes, but there's been limited success with it until now, and a lot of that is just based on the hardware finally catching up. It's hard to take a barcode scanner into the field, but everybody has one of these anyway. So the benefits of that are pretty clear in terms of both keeping track of collections in the field, but then also tracking them when you get out of the field and making sure you're managing the chain of custody well. Outside of our database systems, we're using vector mapping to completely replace graph paper in the field. So we've seen some other examples of vector mapping in the field on tablets at the conference. And this is pretty similar. It's a much different process than working in a paper-based system, but once you get the hang of it, and especially if you have folks who are comfortable with vector mapping in other contexts using Illustrator, it's pretty easy to go into various applications on the iPad, and you gain a lot of benefits from doing this once you get used to the process, because you can do things like copy and paste features, move them around, do things that you just can't do on paper. You can start with a map of a different site and change everything to match the new site, and get really high quality results from doing this as well. You can see we're ending up with maps that are pretty much report ready, coming directly out of the field. So again, the benefits to that of that to us as a company are really in the efficiency there, but also the quality of the data. This is a site in northern New Mexico that we recorded, and you can see all of the little circles here are kivas. These are large structures. This is a massive site, but it was done through a combination. This map was created through a combination of vector mapping in the field, total station work, work with GPS units, bringing it back into a digital workflow in GIS in the office. And then you can do great things with these maps in terms of going out, sending them back out into the field for things like condition assessments, where you can have the blue dot map that everybody is used to, and somebody can walk around and take this data directly to the features they're interested in. And also we produce GeoPDFs for all of our projects before we ever go out into the field that will show the project area to folks, and generally also the results of the literature search, so they know what they're coming across as they come across it. Managing the data is difficult. The previous speaker was touching on some of these challenges in terms of connectivity. So this is how we've dealt with it. We have kind of three systems, going from the most connected environments on the left here to the most disconnected on the right, where the most disconnected on the left to the most connected on the right. But a lot of our survey work, where we can't depend on cell signals, will deploy databases on individual devices and then bring those back into a central database on our server at various intervals, whatever makes sense for the project. When we're in disconnected environments, though, and we need everybody to be working together, so a lot of times this is excavation on sites where things are disconnected, we can have a laptop that's running in a truck or off a car battery and produce an ad hoc Wi-Fi network that everybody on the field can use and work on a single database on that laptop. And then if you have a large complex project where you're excavating lots of sites, you can then integrate all of the data from those sites at some later time in a similar way to the way that you would do it on the left there with local databases on devices. And the best case scenario, which unfortunately rarely happens, is if you're working in urban environments or other environments where you have a really good connection, you can work directly off of databases on the server. In terms of reporting as well, we've tried to make the process as simple as possible with quick click button, processes that will turn data from a field data collection form into forms that mirror the deliverables that we need to provide to our clients. So that's sort of what the PaleoWay is and what we're doing with it. But where did it come from and why are we doing it? to talk about how we were able to develop this. I get asked a lot of times by other folks in the private sector who are trying to work with digital workflows, how did you overcome sort of the initial barriers, the initial costs to developing a system like this? And the short answer is, again, it kind of pays for itself quickly in terms of efficiency and quality in helping us remain profitable as a business. But also there are some specifics to how we did this historically. One thing that helped us out greatly was winning a very large project in northwestern New Mexico that's about 280 miles of pipe. So this is a little water pipeline going into the ground. This is a little hard to see, but all of those red dots on this map would be sites along this 280 miles of pipeline. So I think we have 600 or so sites that we're working on. And one of the earliest tasks for this project was developing a database system for the project in particular, and that helped us overcome the barriers to developing the databases and deploying them on other projects throughout our organization. This is a quick photo. Another project that we did was the project in California that I talked about on Fort Irwin, where we were able to mature that system from something that was developed for the Navajo Gallup water pipeline into something that was a very different type of project for those reevaluations and expand it. So that's something we've done repeatedly as we move into other projects. And a final example is a project we did recently down north of Tucson, where we were, this is development for an outlet mall where we found a site that ended up being the 21st ball court site in the Tucson Basin. It was much larger than anybody expected it to be from testing, and we had a very aggressive timeline on this project to be able to get, for our client to be able to get clearance to move forward with the project. And we were able to strip 7 acres and dig about 1,000 features, I believe, in 2 months north of Tucson, largely because we were using a completely digital workflow. So we like to think of it as an integrated system with the database, the hardware, the applications that we're using, but also the methods. So in terms of directions for the future for us, we've also just made an acquisition. It's fun to see all of these new methods coming out and see everybody talking about some of the things that we're now able to do. We've acquired Dr. Chester Walker back there, and he's really taken us to the next level in terms of 2 things. 2 new service lines for PaleoWest, which would be archaeological geophysics, so doing GPR and mag and resistivity, but also doing 3D modeling, and that's at many different scales. So the photogrammetry at the landscape scale, working at the site scale, at the scale of architecture or artifacts. But what this ends up meaning is that for having a comprehensive digital workflow, integration has really been the biggest challenge for us as a company. So like I mentioned before, how do we deploy this in diverse regulatory contexts? How do we meet the needs of different clients on vastly different projects all at the same time? How do we take a paperless archaeology, take a digital archaeology and apply it to diverse service lines, new services and methods, and throughout the geographical coverage? And the solution for us as a company has really been to maintain a flexible system that's managed centrally and that's continually customized and developed. It's, again, the commitment to the digital process and realizing the benefits of that's been key to us in making it work in the private sector. So The benefits of the system, just to sum it all up here, we feel that using a completely digital workflow, paperless archaeology, in the consultant archaeology context allows us to do more justice to the resource by reducing error. We're able to improve the security of our systems. That's an interesting point that I actually didn't touch on, but I get asked a lot of times, how do you control the security of the data on digital devices? What happens if you drop it into a river? Well, what happens if you drop a box of paper forms into a river? They float away. If you drop an iPad into a river, hopefully you've been backing up that data the whole time, and it's being replicated to other devices. It's so easy to copy computer files. And then in terms of maintaining network security, that's a challenge that has already been solved by people way smarter than us, and we're able to leverage the network security benefits of these systems that have been developed by other people. So we think it improves data security and also reduces management costs for our clients, the cultural resource managers, to actually being able to take better care of these sites. We feel there are benefits to the science in terms of broader dissemination of data and ideas, being able to employ new and better methodologies. That's one of the things that's really exciting to see from everybody, is how you're all thinking about ways to employ technologies to do